Hello, 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 and welcome to another Wednesday live stream. It's good to be back, isn't it, Lynn? It's been a
It
while.
is, but you're looking better on it than me.
You're looking
after
very
your
good.
after
You're
your
looking
long
great.
holiday, you look so relaxed and happy.
Well, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute
Mhm,
because I did see some animals and we are talking about pets today. But
mhm.
before we do that, if people are tuning in and watching for the first time, or if you're watching the replay, thank you. We'll introduce ourselves. My name's Craig. I'm from the website mansioningles.com, where you can study English for free. There are free courses and materials there for you, especially if you're a Spanish speaker. And there's a podcast over at inglespodcast.com that we publish every week that will help you with your English. So find it on the website or wherever you listen to podcasts. And with me over there, my good friend Lynn, who I haven't seen for a few weeks. So it's really
Yeah,
nice to see her again from putitlikethis.com.
that's right. And putitlikethis.com is my website. I'm an online English teacher. Um, and if you're interested in online classes, the difference, I suppose, with Put It Like This is that I try to create a course around the people to fit their objectives only. So I don't offer standardized courses. It's usually all tailor-made courses. So if you have specific objectives in English, it could be to pass an exam. It could be because you're an English teacher and you want to improve your pronunciation when you give English classes. It could be that you just want conversation. You want to improve your fluency. Or you could be a business person and you need to prepare meetings or presentations. So basically, you tell me what your specific skills are, and then I'll try to create a course to deliver you that so that you can find your own voice in English. So if you're interested, go to putitlikethis.com and you'll find out more information. And there's also a contact page there where you can get in contact with me.
Okay.
All right.
Putitlikethis.com. So we are going to talk about pets and animals today. And hello, Gemma. Gemma's here. Good to see you, Gemma. It's been a few
Hi,
weeks.
Hima.
Good to
It's
see
great
you
to see
too.
you again. Yeah.
And hopefully more people will be joining us soon.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at some vocabulary first and then discuss some questions with you about pets. Now, if you're watching the replay, you can also write in the chat. We always look at the chat after the video. So feel free to comment if you have an opinion on what we're going to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
But my first question to Gemma, who's watching live, and to you, Lynn, are you an animal lover?
Well, I'll let Hema write her response. I am. I think I do love, well, I like animals, I think. I don't know
I
whether
think.
I'm an animal lover because I have to admit I don't own a pet. Yeah, and I haven't. I think the last time I owned a pet was when I was a small child and I owned a goldfish. I had a goldfish, which is one of those little orange fish that you put in a bowl, and my parents allowed us to have a goldfish. And then we went on holiday, and unfortunately, when we came back from holiday, the goldfish was dead.
Oh
And
dear.
we actually had two goldfish, and when we came back from holiday, there was only one goldfish in the bowl. So we suspect that one ate the other one, and we had left food for the goldfish,
They
but for
weren't
some reason,
piranhas, were they? They were goldfish and
no.
not
But I
piranhas.
don't know what happened to them. But it was a bit devastating when I was a small child, and I think that just proved that actually my family and me, we didn't really know how to look after animals. Really. So I don't think I can call myself an animal. Well, I'm certainly not an animal expert. Let's put it that way. But I do like animals, but I'm not sure whether I'm competent enough to look after a pet, I think. Mhm.
And your kids never asked for any animal pets when they were younger. They didn't want a kitten or a dog.
Oh, yes, they did. And I know when I was a child, I I really wanted animals, and I pestered, That's a funny word, isn't it? Pestered. That's when you keep saying, "Mummy, mummy, mummy, give me this, give me this, give me this. I want, I want, I want." So when I was small, I did pester my family for a long time, my parents, and I said, "Please, I want a pet, I want a pet," and they always said no to dogs and cats and things. And after the goldfish episode, that was the end.
Mm.
And then, because I'm a parent, what happens when you're a parent is you turn into your mother and father. So my children pestered me when I was small for dogs and cats, and I always said, "No, I've got enough to do with looking after you three. I can't look after an animal as well."
Yeah.
So I said no. But they wanted, yeah.
Emma says that she is an animal lover and she
Great.
had dogs in the
Oh,
past.
wow. So you're an expert too, then, Hema. That's good.
I know there are a few more people watching. I think there are 7 people watching. So let us know where
Great.
you're from and
Hmm.
who you are, and if you are an animal lover.
And what
Let
about
us
you,
know.
Craig? Are you?
I am a dog lover. I did have a
Hmm.
dog when I was growing up, and
Hmm.
I loved the dog, and I love dogs. But when I started traveling, I just didn't think it was fair to have a dog and
Hmm.
then put the dog in kennels or ask favors from friends to look after
Hmm.
the dog. It didn't seem fair to me. So I haven't had a dog since I was a child. But I
Hmm.
do love dogs. I love watching dogs and I love seeing dogs walking around the beach here.
Hmm.
I'm not very keen on pets. I don't like
On
cats very
cats, you're not a
much. On
cat lover.
cats, not a cat.
I
I'm
think
not a
that
cat
that
person.
that often happens, isn't it? People say they're a cat lover or a dog lover. I like both. I think I like both. When I was a child, when I was on campsites, I always used to run after the kittens that were stray kittens, the wild ones.
Yeah.
And I used to look after them and play with them a lot. But I also love dogs. And it was like you said, when people have dogs, I quite like dogs, especially when I was a child, more so when I was a child. I'm a little bit more cautious now around petting other people's dogs. I don't go to the dog and love the dog crazy.
When I
I'm
was
not like
about
that now.
when I was about 6 years old, I was in the
Hmm.
street and there was a cat in the street, and I picked up the cat and I was stroking it. To do this is to
Hmm.
stroke the animal, and suddenly a dog came up the street, and the
Hmm.
cat saw the dog, and the claws of the cat came out and scratched my arm,
Oh,
and really badly. It was bleeding quite
oh
badly,
dear.
and since
Uh-huh.
then I've been not nervous of cats, but not very keen on them.
Yeah, not very keen on them. Hmm.
Vicente's watching. He's from Cartagena, and he does like pets. Do you have any cats or dogs, Vicente? Do you have any pets?
Uh-huh.
Pats? I keep saying pats instead of cats. Do you have
Uh-huh.
any cats or dogs at the moment?
Uh-huh. And then the other Vicente Barea, says that he likes German shepherds.
Hmm.
And he said they're marvelous four paws friends. Now, that's interesting. The word paw, Paw, that Vicente's used is absolutely right. And that's for the, what would you say, the extremity, the limb of a dog.
The hands of the dog,
Yeah, the
the
hands and
feet.
feet.
Yeah.
Because we don't say that dogs have hands and they don't have feet, they have paws. Um, but if you're going to use that, Vicente, as an adjective, like you have, they're marvelous, but four paw, you would have to say four pawed friends.
That's
And
not
I
easy
would
to
use,
say, is it?
that's not easy to say, that's with hyphens. So put a hyphen after four, and then instead of paws in the plural, put an ed, four pawed friends.
My four-pawed friend.
My four-pawed friends, but it's very difficult to pronounce.
Emma had a Belgian Shepherd. I don't know what a Belgian Shepherd looks like. I'll have to
Hmm.
Google that. And she was called Ines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Hmm.
lovely. Let's look at some vocabulary then connected to
Hmm.
dogs if we're talking about dogs. Now, um, I said before that I don't like having a dog because if you travel, you need to put the dog somewhere with a neighbor, with a friend, with family, or in a kennel. A kennel is where you can pay to keep dogs. It's like a hotel for dogs, and
Hmm.
that's a kennel. So to keep dogs in kennels and to
Hmm.
take dogs for a walk outside, then you often attach something to the dog so that the dog doesn't run away, and that's called a lead. That's more common in British English, and a leash, I think, is more common in American English. So
That's the thing that you hold the dog with. I want to say one word to do with dogs' kennels, because the way that Craig has written it there, that is like the name for the like a school or a kindergarten for dogs, right? It's not a school, it doesn't teach them anything, but it looks after them, like a hotel for dogs. But if you use the word kennel in this singular, then a kennel is the little wooden, it's usually wooden structure. Some people have a kennel in their garden, and that's the little house where the dog sleeps. They're not very popular kennel, like to use a kennel in Spain, but I think that's because people live in apartments.
right, yeah,
But
they don't have gardens.
they
so
don't
much.
really have gardens. But in areas in England, a lot of people don't have the dogs sleeping in the house. They have the dogs sleeping outside in the garden, but in a kennel. And the kennel is like a little wooden house with a little door. And when the dog wants to go to sleep, it usually puts itself inside the kennel.
Yeah.
But that's in the singular. Yeah.
And
Okay.
talking about lead, you can use lead as a verb to lead the dog, to pull the dog on the lead. So it's a verb and a noun. And this is a collar. I'm wearing a shirt with a collar here, and a dog collar goes around the dog's neck. So you attach the lead or leash to the collar. And it's a good idea to have your address on the collar so that if the dog gets lost, you know where the dog lives.
I think now they have a very good invention though now, don't they? They have microchips, and a lot of dogs have a chip implanted, I believe, not just in the collar, but they have it implanted under their skin. And so if they get lost, they can be found. People know whose dog it is.
Exactly.
Then the next word we have is breed. And the breed means the type of dog that you have. So some people have mentioned German Shepherds, Belgian Shepherds. What other types of dogs? Bulldogs, poodles.
I had a Schnauz. I had a German dog called a Schnauzer. A Schnauzer or Schnauzer. Yeah.
A
Miniature
Schnauzer.
Schnauzer. Terriers. Yeah.
Terriers. So a breed is like the race of dog that you have.
Begonia loves dogs. She's got we don't know what kind of dog, but she does love animals. What kind of dog do you have, Begonia? Let us
Do you know in English the
And
word?
Vicente had 2 dogs.
Yeah.
We have
Okay.
lots of dog. Any cat lovers watching?
Any cat.
Any cat lovers? Calling all cat lovers out there.
Because cats also have breeds as well, don't they? There are breeds of cats like Siamese cat, and I don't know the names of cats, but there are breeds. There are breeds of cats.
Tabby cats.
And then we have obedience training. That's not usually for cats. Cats don't like to be trained, do they?
No.
But dogs like to be trained. Well, I don't know whether they like it, but usually people try to train dogs to be obedient. And some people they go regularly to dog training classes. I know my friend in Germany, she got a dog, and she's I think for the first year of its life, every Sunday, they would go to a couple of hours of obedience training.
It's a good idea.
And I have to say that the dog is really, really well behaved. So, I mean, those training classes seem to work, don't they?
Yes, definitely. Begonia has a Yorkshire Terrier. Yeah, little dog. Yeah, they're quite nice.
I sometimes call those Begonia yappy dogs, because a lot of Yorkshire Terriers are always going yap, 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 yap. They're often barking, so I call them yappy dogs. Can you put yappy in the chat? YAPPY, and that's the little sort of snappy sound that they make. Yappy.
Yeah, to yap. Or
Begonia says yes, they yap.
Apart from yapping, we've got other noises that dogs make. Woof woof is to bark. That's the verb to bark. Woof woof. Although I think in Spanish you don't say woof woof. You say wow wow or something
Wow,
similar.
wow.
Wow wow.
Yeah.
And is growling. To growl.
Growl.
Dogs and
Mm-hmm.
wolves growl.
Mm-hmm.
And to whine is, what's a whine, Lynn?
Oh, you're gonna get it's like ow.
Ow!
When they more like a wolf, isn't it? But a
That's a
whine is
howl. Yeah.
it's a howl. A whine is when maybe when a dog is crying a little bit. And that's a horrible. I had neighbors and their dog often cried because they left the dog for
Yeah.
long periods, and it's a terrible sound. I mean, I'm not an animal expert and I'm not an animal lover, but I have that motherly instinct that when I hear something crying, I want to help. And so
Yeah.
I don't like to hear dogs whining. It's usually because people are doing something wrong when dogs are whining, I think.
That's true. Also, people whine. You can use the verb to whine for people who complain a lot. You can say,
Mm-hmm.
"Stop whining," or "What are
Mm-hmm.
you whining about?
Mm-hmm.
What are you complaining about?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we sometimes use bark for people too. If people are very angry and she says, she barked the answer at me. It's like, go. That's that way of
Aggressively.
speaking to somebody aggressively is barking.
Yeah.
As well. And we missed the idea of to pat or to pet a dog. And that's when you do that action with your hand, you pat like this, or
Mhm.
sometimes we also say to pet. But you mentioned another one earlier, which I don't think we wrote. Oh, well, we did it with cats, which was to stroke a cat, but you can also stroke a dog. So if you run your hand across the fur of the dog, across the coat of the dog, that movement is to stroke. And this movement is to pat. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's move on to cats. Speaking of stroking cats, and cats often don't get taken outside for a walk with a lead and a collar
Mm-hmm.
because they usually do their business and what they have to do as far as the toilet is concerned, they do in the house in something called a litter tray. So a
Mm-hmm.
cat has a litter tray and that's what it uses for its business inside the house.
Now, I've
Or
often wondered,
mm,
you don't have a cat, do you? I mean, why do cats go to litter trays, or how do you train a cat to go to a litter tray? I have no idea because I'm not a pet expert.
I'm
But
not sure, but it might be something to do with the smell. The smell in the litter maybe attracts the cat.
uh-huh.
If there are any cat lovers out there, let us know. Why do cats use litter trays? Do you need
Mm-hmm.
to train them?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there something that they do? I know they're very clean animals. They're constantly washing and licking themselves. They are
Mm-hmm.
very clean. Maybe that's something to do with it, that they don't like
Uh-huh.
to mess their environment. They
Their
like to,
environment, and they like to
yeah,
mark their environment, I think, cats. So
yeah.
they by urinating, then they mark that area. They're territorial, aren't they, in that sense? So maybe they continually have the habit of going back there as that marking instinct. But I've often wondered as well. I mean, I'm showing all my ignorance about animals to the whole world. Why can we not train dogs to use the toilet? Because dogs are so clever. You can train them, to bring your slippers, to bring the newspaper.
I
And
think you can. I've seen videos on
can
TikTok
you
and
train a
YouTube
dog to go
with
to the
dogs that
toilet?
lift up the toilet seat and actually use the toilet. I've seen videos of pets
Really?
doing that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah.
Although maybe it depends on the breed of dog. Maybe some
Uh-huh.
dogs, obviously a Yorkshire Terrier would have to jump very high
And
to
he
get
might
up
fall
to the
into and
toilet
he
and
might
might
fall into
fall
the
in and
toilet.
drown in the toilet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I
Question
mean,
in
you'd
from
think if you could train a dog, you would think
Mhm.
that a dog might well be able to, but I don't know. Maybe the dog experts can tell me. Tell us, please. Is
I
it
don't
possible
think
to train a dog?
I don't think the dog would be able to wipe its bum after it's finished, though.
But
That's a bit
people don't
tricky.
do that on the streets, do they? When they take the dogs to do their business on the street,
Mhm.
they don't wipe their bottoms either, do they?
Not usually. I have seen people do that, but not
Uh-huh.
usually. No,
Not
they don't. They
usually,
just
no.
leave it.
Uh-huh.
Question in from Vicente. He asks, do you have to pay any fee? Is there a cost for
Mm-hmm.
having a pet in the UK? No, I don't think there is.
No, there is. You have to have a dog license.
We never did.
I believe you have to have a license.
Do you?
So maybe you were just under the auspices of the law. But I believe you have to have a dog license and
Well,
you have to pay for it.
I will Google it, Vicente, and I'll have an answer for you in a second. While
Because with the dog license, you have to also show that your dog has all the vaccinations and all of the because Britain was very, very conscious of rabies. That's why you couldn't travel with dogs outside Britain. And well, I mean, it's possible to travel with them, but they have to go into quarantine.
I've just found the answer. You used to need a dog
Ah,
license
okay.
in England, and it stopped 35 years ago.
Oh,
So
wow.
now you don't need.
Sorry.
Well, no, because I had my dog more than 35 years ago.
Oh,
So
wow.
we broke the law
You
by not
broke the
having a
law.
dog
Hmm.
license. You must make sure your dog is microchipped, as Lynn said before,
Ah, okay.
but you do not need a license, but you need to get it
Oh,
chipped,
ah.
microchipped.
Well, I've been out of the UK for more than 35 years, so
Me
that's all
too.
right. That's forgiven me.
Yeah. You're excused.
Uh-huh. I'm excused, yeah.
Where are we with cats? Stroke a
To
cat.
stroke a cat? Mhm.
Whiskers are here at the side of the cat's mouth, hairs that come
Mhm.
out. They're very sensitive. A cat has whiskers. And
Mhm.
as we said before, they're very clean. They often lick their fur and they wash
Lick with
themselves with
their tongue.
their
Lick
tongue.
is that. Uh-huh.
But when they do lick their fur, very often the fur of the cat comes off and goes into their mouth, and they can have fur balls, which makes them cough, which is not very nice for the cat or for the owner. Do you like my
No.
cat impersonations?
It was lovely. It's because I always remember, do you know the movie Shrek?
Yes.
And there's a fantastic scene in the movie where the cat, the Puss in Boots,
Antonio
he is,
Banderas.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right, and he has his sword at the ready, and he's about to engage in fight, and then he says, "Excuse me," and then he goes,
Yep, I
and
remember
then,
that.
and then he coughs up a fur ball.
Yeah, I
So I
remember that.
remember that one. Mhm.
And meow is the noise that a cat makes very often. And when they're very happy and content, they purr, which is brrr, that very
Mhm.
soft, nice,
Sound.
yeah, low
Uh-huh.
sound.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
Gemma says she likes cats, uh, animals in general, but she's not a cat lover. Yeah, I'm the
Never.
same. I don't mind cats, but
I have a
I'm
little
not a cat lover.
theory about cats, I think cats are very tactile. So if you like stroking an animal and if you like hugging an animal, a cat is beautiful, isn't it? Because I mean, it feels beautiful. We like stroking a cat. And sometimes dogs, it's not the same because sometimes dogs, if they have long hair, they can be a bit like, if they have a very long
But you
hair.
can grab a dog, especially a big
Yeah.
dog, where
Yeah.
cats will just they're so independent,
Yeah.
they'll just go
Well,
away
this
if they
is it.
don't
I
feel
think
like
the
it.
thing is, if you like to have a relationship, probably you've got more chance of like having more interaction with a dog, haven't you? But a cat is a very nice thing to touch, I think, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, let's talk
Mhm.
about that because we have a question that refers to that. Why do we have pets? And you said that stroking, I think there is something therapeutic and something that de-stresses you when
Mhm.
you have cats and dogs that you stroke. And I
Mhm.
think it's very good. And of course, if people are lonely, a pet will keep you company.
Mhm.
What other reasons are there for having pets?
Or maybe people can join in and tell us why do you think people
Well,
have
what do you
pets?
think?
I agree with you. I think it's very therapeutic. And I think it's also, there's something nice about pets is that you can communicate with them, but not through language.
Yeah.
You communicate with the animals through body language, and I think there's something inherent in us, because we're animals too, and of course we communicate with our own species through language and body language, or sign language, let's say. But it's not usual for human beings, unless you're in an intimate relationship with somebody, to communicate by touching them, you know. But it's nice, isn't it? So
Yeah.
I think there's something that we enjoy with pets, because we can actually be hands-on with a pet in a way that we can only be if you have a very particular relationship with, like, your child, or your partner, let's say.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And to go even further, I mean, some people do speak to their animals
Hmm.
as if they can understand. I see it every day when I
Yeah.
walk here and people are taking their dogs for a walk, and they'll
Uh-huh.
say, come on, keep
Uh-huh.
walking, don't stop there. And they talk to the animal as if the animal can understand, which I find very strange.
But sometimes I think the animals do understand. I mean, the animals do respond to certain things, don't they? If they hear their name being called, the animals. So the animals do have some kind of, they can't speak back to you, but they
Hmm.
understand you. And that is something very, that's like that must be something deep within your ego, isn't it? Because let's face it, don't we love it when we can talk but nobody speaks back to us? It's like, it's so nice to have a one-way communication.
Can always win an argument with your dog.
Exactly. So that's very nice, isn't it?
And Begonia says the interaction with them is very relaxing. Yeah, it's very
Hmm.
soothing. It's very therapeutic.
Hmm. And they
Definitely.
won't argue with you, do they? I suppose
No,
the animals don't argue with you.
they won't tell you what to do.
And they don't criticize you, do they? Hmm.
No,
Hmm.
no, they don't. Okay, let's move on to look at some more vocabulary connected to other animals. So you mentioned fish, didn't you? The two fish that you killed,
They were killed by accident.
and the goldfish that Lynn had
Uh-huh.
in a goldfish bowl. And
Yeah.
fish, when fish live in a big space of water, it's called an aquarium.
Hmm.
That's where fish are kept, especially tropical fish.
Hmm.
And turtles and tortoise. The difference between a turtle and a tortoise? Does anybody know the difference?
Hmm. They're popular pets, aren't they, for children as well?
They
Turtles
are.
and tortoises.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
very similar. The difference is a tortoise lives on land, but a turtle lives in water,
In
or
water.
is
Hmm.
very comfortable in water.
In
I
water.
saw I swam with a turtle
Did
when
you?
I
A big
was on
one?
there.
Because a lot
It
of
was
people a lot of the kids, they have these little mini terrapins,
oh
don't
no,
they? These little
it was
tiny ones.
it's about a
Uh-huh.
meter. It was about a meter. It
Wow.
was pretty
Uh-huh.
big. And a manta ray, which is huge. I
Oh,
saw a
uh-huh.
manta ray recently.
And you
That
were
was
swimming
amazing.
with them?
Yeah, snorkeling,
Snorkeling.
not with air on my back, but just
No.
snorkeling, and I saw the manta ray below. It was huge.
Wow.
It was like 3 or 4 meters across. It was massive.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. But they're
beautiful,
not
beautiful
dangerous, are
animals.
they, manta rays? I don't think they're dangerous.
I don't think so. I didn't get too close just in case. I
Uh-huh.
saw a
Uh-huh.
shark, but it was a little baby. It was a reef shark on a reef, so it was
Oh.
very small.
Uh-huh.
But it
Uh-huh.
was going really quickly. I thought, "That fish is going fast.
Mhm.
Oh, it looks like a," and then I saw you can tell
With
the
a fin.
shape of a
Uh-huh.
shark. Yeah, I
Mhm.
thought, "Oh, it's a shark. Wow, my first shark."
Wow. Uh-huh.
That's pretty cool.
Mhm.
So yeah, there we go. Moving on.
Okay. So,
Cages.
mhm.
Cages. Animals that live in cages, particularly birds like parrots
Mhm.
and canaries.
Canaries are the little yellow, they're very colorful little birds. And it's quite popular, I think, in Spain still to have birds, isn't it, as pets? Although I think it's becoming less common. But
Mhm.
it used to be common in Britain, but I don't think it's so common anymore in Britain to have birds in cages.
No, there's been a bit of pushback on it.
Against.
Pushback means people going against it because, I
Uh-huh.
mean, I agree. I don't think it's very fair to keep birds in cages. I don't like to see
No,
animals in
because
cages.
they're very small, aren't they? And then the birds can't fly. Um,
Yeah.
and so canaries, but there are other cages that some people have in their houses for animals. Skunks, which are, and ferrets. These are they're mammals, aren't they, with long
Mhm.
tails. They're a kind of rodents, really. They're like, I mean, they're not rats, but they're very big types of rodents, aren't they, that are usually found in forests. But some people like to have them. They have very long, furry tails, don't they, ferrets?
Isn't the skunk is the animal that smells really
That
badly?
smells. A
Yeah,
skunk
it's got
smells badly.
yeah, and
And then
rabbits.
rabbits. A lot of people like rabbits for small children because they're extremely soft and beautiful to touch. They're even nicer to touch than cats. A rabbit because the hair is lovely. Little hamsters, which are bigger than mice.
Well, they've got
Mice is the plural of mouse.
cheeks.
They're like little rodents with tails. And gerbils, which is another variant of these kind of little rodents, little mammals.
Mhm.
And a lot of people keep them in cages. Now, Begonia has just said, I don't like to see them in jails. Can you see that?
Yeah.
But we don't say jails for animals. I mean, they are like a jail. We say cages, Begonia. Okay. But I agree with you, Begonia. I don't like to see animals in small enclosures. So I don't like the cages for birds. And I actually, even though I know I had a goldfish when I was small, but I was irresponsible then, I don't actually like to see fish in very tiny bowls either. I think,
Yeah.
I often think like the poor little fish
Going
just
around and
has to
round and
run
round.
around and round and round
Yeah.
and doesn't see anything.
Yeah.
Like dogs and cats have a little bit more liberty, don't they, than those animals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on.
Uh-huh.
Moving on from animals in cages, we have vivariums, which
Mm.
are similar to aquariums, except that vivariums are more for reptiles like snakes, iguanas, lizards, that kind of
Uh-huh.
thing.
The
Yeah.
reason it's called a vivarium and aquarium, it's because they have a controlled temperature environment. And obviously, an aquarium is full of aqua, so water, and a vivarium just has a controlled temperature. I think they have like heat lamps in, and they're especially for tropical animals that cannot stand the cold.
Mhm.
That have to be kept at temperatures. And they are quite popular nowadays, aren't they?
They
These
are.
exotic animals, these reptiles, iguanas and snakes. So things that were really should be living in the jungle. They're not pets as such, but they are kept in these vivariums.
Mhm. There was a snake. I found a snake on my car the other day.
What, in Valencia?
Yeah, it was a windscreen viper.
Craig.
A windscreen wiper? No, a viper, a windscreen viper. Nothing funnier than a joke that's been explained. Moving on. Moving on.
I hope everybody
When
doesn't turn off now. Everybody's going to turn off after
yeah,
that
we've
joke.
just lost
Very bad joke,
half the
Craig.
viewers, half the audience. Anyway, when
Mhm,
sadly some people who have dogs and cats and other pets, so they don't like to keep them. Maybe they
mhm,
have a present for Christmas, and in January they decide they don't want the dog anymore. So unfortunately, dogs that go outside and live in the street, I think Lynn mentioned this before, they're called strays, stray animals, and
mhm,
they tend to be collected and put in an animal shelter. So an
mhm,
animal shelter is like a rescue place for animals that have no place to live. And
mhm,
if you are thinking of getting a dog, it's a good idea to get one from a shelter because you're
mhm.
giving a dog a home.
And I think the shelters are not just for dogs, no, it's for all sorts of animals that are
Yeah.
abandoned. A lot of animals are abandoned, and then if you're thinking of getting one, it's better to go to a shelter and to adopt one there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hi, Arturo. Arturo is watching from Honduras, and
Hi.
Luisfer is also watching from
Oh,
Guatemala. So a
great.
truly worldwide audience learning
That's
about
great.
animals and
Nice.
pets.
Yeah. And of course, you're in tropical countries, aren't you? In Honduras and Guatemala. So,
You have
so
snakes and lizards.
you have
Yeah.
snakes and lizards naturally out there. So, would you guys think of having those animals as pets, or is that something very odd that people in Europe do? Or yeah, is it a strange idea to have those kind of animals as pets? Let us know.
Yeah. Tell us what you
Okay.
think.
So you can keep a bird in a cage and you can take a pet to the vet. Vet is short for veterinarian or veterinary surgeon, but we just say vet for short. So to take a pet to the vet is the doctor for animals.
So let's look
Okay.
at some questions we've got for you. And if you do have an opinion, then please tell us what you
Mm.
think and we can discuss it. Now, is it fair to have a pet, to keep an animal in your house?
Uh-huh.
Sometimes there's this accepted idea that, yeah, everybody has a dog. You should have a dog. The neighbor has a dog. There's this social pressure from the media or from your community to have
Mm-hmm.
a pet. We have somebody in this area where I live who has a pet pig, and she walks along the seriously, she walks
Mm-hmm.
around the street with a pig on a lead, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is very, very strange.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
do you think pets have become accessories?
I think they have to a certain degree. Yes, I think they have. I mean, you can see it because certainly here in Spain, I'm not sure about England now, but in Spain, there is a massive, but I think it's general because I read an article, even it's the same in Britain and in the US. There has been a massive increase in the amount of people who have pets nowadays.
Hmm.
I mean, when I was a child, people had pets, but a lot of people who had big dogs, for example, had big gardens,
Yes.
or they lived in big houses. Often they had dogs for security of the house as well. Mhm.
So it's a working dog. If it's a dog
It
for
was a working
security,
dog.
or if
Yeah.
it's a dog for herding sheep, if it's a shepherd who
Uh-huh.
has a dog, then it's a working dog, which I think is something completely different. For
Mhm.
years, animals have helped humans by working for them, horses,
Uh-huh.
dogs. But is it fair to
And
domesticate these animals?
when I was a child, if you had a dog and you lived in an urban area, they tended to be smaller dogs, like the one Yorkshire Terrier. I think
Hmm.
Begonia says she's got a Yorkshire Terrier. So they were smaller dogs. But nowadays, you see all sorts of dogs in and living. And for example, we have a neighbor here too in this area, and you see them, and they have four huge St. Bernard dogs. Those are those rescue dogs from the Alps. They have loads of hair.
Mm.
Yeah. And they are huge. They're like little ponies. And they
Yeah.
live in a flat with them. And I do see them taking them for walks. So they regularly take them for walks. So I'm not suggesting that they're not looking after the dogs. I believe that they're looking after the dogs. But I don't know. I think to myself, is it really kind for the dog to be living in a flat when you're such a big dog, Or sometimes in Spain, it's been very popular recently to have husky dogs. Husky dogs live in very cold temperatures in the Arctic. And then
Hmm.
to have them in Valencia, where it gets really hot in the summer,
That's what I was thinking. I
I
think it's more an
wonder
issue
whether
of the
it's
weather because
kind, to
I
have
don't
those
think
kind
it
of
if
dogs.
they do give the dog exercise
Mhm.
regularly, I don't think the dog would mind where it sleeps and where it eats if it's
Mhm.
running and if it's getting the exercise it needs. But as you say, I think the problem is those dogs are not native to Spain. So a dog
Mhm.
with that much hair who lives in a cold climate shouldn't
Mhm.
be living in Spain in July and August,
Mhm. Mhm.
in my opinion. I don't think it's fair.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, it's strange. And then, of course, um, when we talk about pets having become accessories, it is true. And I think this social media like TikTok and that, there are certain people who like to have like certain dogs. So you see, I see around, there's a lot of like young men of a certain like age, and they're kind of like a bit hipster in their look, and they like to have like these bulldogs, these quite ugly dogs, these fighting dogs,
Hmm.
you know, and it matches their image, you know. And then there are, on the contrary, there could be women who have sort of very pretty dogs. And then you see some people who put clothes on the dogs as well, and they
Yeah,
accessorize their dogs with with coats and jumpers, and you
yeah.
know. So I'm not sure about that, about whether it seems a bit odd to me, a bit suspect, but maybe I'm being too, I don't know. As I say, I've got to be careful about my opinion because I'm not a dog or an animal expert. I don't really know. You know, maybe if you have one and you really love it and you see your dog shivering, maybe you think, yeah, I'm going to buy it a fur coat, you know, or a scarf or something. I don't know. Maybe you can tell us, the people who have animals. Do you think that that dogs are an accessory sometimes? Hmm.
Well, Marie Clara says that during the pandemic, dogs became an accessory somehow. Some people
Yeah,
just got them to be able to go outside. Yeah. And I
yeah.
know also that some men have dogs because it's easy to meet girls if you have a dog.
Ah,
Dog owners tend to speak, and the dogs meet each other. It's an
yeah,
icebreaker. It's a way
yeah,
to
yeah.
break the ice
Uh-huh.
for young people to meet each other on the street.
But not just young people, old people too, because I mean,
Old people
sometimes
too. Yeah.
when people are lonely, if they've lost their partner, sometimes people suggest get a dog, and then you'll go out and you'll meet people and you'll talk to people. And it's a way to get, it's like that therapeutic thing. Sometimes you could be giving people advice to get an animal to heal themselves. So if you're going to use your animal for that, that's also kind of a bit of an accessory, isn't it? Or
Well, it's
it's a
funny you should say that because
hmm
when my sister's husband died, she about a year after, she said to me she was thinking of getting a dog.
hmm
And then for a while, she was really keen on the idea of getting a dog to keep her company.
hmm
And I said, Are you going to take it for walks 2 or 3 times a day in the rain when it's
hmm
cold to give it the exercise it needs?" And then she decided it wasn't a good idea.
yeah,
But yeah, I can understand why people do that.
yeah, yeah,
Begonia
yeah,
agrees. She says some people use them as an accessory.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And Deanna says they're not toys. Yeah, we have to
hmm
respect their nature. I agree
But I think
100%.
on the other hand as well, I have to recognize, I know lots of people who have pets who take very good care of their pets, and they do respect the nature of the animal. You know, they think a lot about whether what they're doing with the animal, whether it's good for the animal or not. You know.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
Lewis for saying, be careful with those St. Bernard dogs that your neighbor
Oh.
has because they might become angry.
Oh,
Um,
I think they're very well
Sorry.
behaved, actually. I've seen them because sometimes we're sitting in the cafe and they pass. But I have to say, the St. Bernard dogs seem to be very mild in nature. I've never seen them barking,
Mhm.
and I've never heard them barking, and they never ever, they're not these dogs that come, and especially for women, often they jump at women, you know, they smell you as a woman and they jump at you. And the St. Bernard dogs have never done that when they've walked past me or when I've been sitting in a cafe and they've been very close. So they seem to be quite good. There are other there
Well
was a
trained.
there was a
Yeah.
Yorkshire Terrier, Begonia, once, that when I was walking my children to school, that a man was coming with he had 2 or 3 little Yorkshire Terriers, and they were yapping and coming. And because we were coming opposite, we were going to cross our paths, they started to get very excited. And I remember it was in the summer, and it grabbed my ankle. And I was just walking, and it it bit onto my ankle,
Did
and
it
I
bite?
was
Did it?
pulling.
Did it bite you?
It didn't put its teeth. It didn't break the skin,
Mm.
but it grabbed me. And then, of course, I pulled away, and of course, it was only a little Yorkshire Terrier, and it was on a leash. So the owner had the dog. He was pulling in one direction, and I was walking in the other direction. But I was quite, I was quite traumatized by the little thing that attacked me.
Wow, says Begonia.
Yeah.
She also Begonia lives in Cadiz, which gets very, very hot in the
Oh
summer,
yes.
and they
Uh-huh.
are husky. Like some people have huskies there, and it's not.
Uh-huh.
Huskies should be in the north of Europe. They should be
Uh-huh.
in Iceland, in Switzerland, in the North Pole, pulling
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sledges. They shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be walking around Spain in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Gemma says if you decide to have a dog, you should think about the pros and cons. It's a responsibility.
It
Well,
is.
let's
Uh-huh.
talk about the cons. What are the
Mm-hmm.
disadvantages of having pets? Well, you have to
Mm-hmm.
take them for walks
Mm-hmm.
regularly, give them the exercise they need. They can be
Mm-hmm.
expensive.
Yeah, very expensive. And
Not only
I
the
would.
food, it's the
Mm-hmm.
vet's bills,
It
paying for
is.
the injections, the
Mm-hmm.
inoculations, paying for medical care from the vet.
Yeah. And I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and she had cats, and she loves her cats. She looked after her cats, and the cats were getting old. And then one of the cats was getting ill, and they took it to the vet. And the thing is now, she said, the medical possibilities for keeping pets alive have extended like they have for humans. So a few years ago, if your cat or your dog had a tumor, a cancerous tumor, usually they would immediately have said it's kind to the animal to put the animal down. So we use that phrasal verb to put an animal down, which means to euthanize, to kill the animal. So with an injection at the vets. But nowadays, because there's been so many medical advances in veterinary science that now if you take your cat, as she did, to the vet said, oh, we can start chemotherapy.
That's expensive.
No, and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
And the vet was proposing to her to first have an operation to remove the tumor and then to put the cat through chemotherapy. And these are very, very expensive veterinary bills.
Yeah.
And I think that is also, I mean, so there's a financial disadvantage of having a pet because you can suddenly be faced with massive medical bills. And the other very difficult is that now you are forced to make this decision. But have I got the money? Have I not got the money? I don't want to kill my animal. And of course, you must have an emotional connection with the animal.
Hmm.
And these are decisions now that 40 years ago, nobody had to make. It was just if your animal got ill, your animal was euthanized.
You put it down. Yeah.
You put it down. But nowadays, people are faced with some big decisions with their animals.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are there any other disadvantages? Oh, Maria Clara
Maria's
has
got one.
an
Mm-hmm.
idea. You might have problems with other people. For
Mm,
example, a dog could bite a person or attack another pet.
that's
Yes.
true. Mm-hmm.
And also, less drastically, I hate seeing the mess, excuse me, the shit on the floor
Mm-hmm.
when I go out for a walk because
Mm-hmm.
other people are too lazy to pick
Mm-hmm.
up the mess that their dogs have left. That
Mm-hmm.
really, really annoys me. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't see why um, that other people who don't have pets
Mm-hmm.
should have the streets covered in dog's mess.
And it also can cause problems in friends groups sometimes, because for example, if you have a cat, it's not so much of a problem because you can leave the cat at home. Cats are quite happy to be at home on their own, aren't they?
Yeah.
But dogs are not. And if you go away or if you go out for dinner, sometimes there are some dogs that start to cry, they start to whine, they can't really be left for long periods alone at home. And that can cause problems for your neighbors if you leave them.
Exactly.
Which is what I had, where I had to listen to the dog crying all night, and I was feeling very guilty and couldn't sleep. And should I call the RSPCA or the shelter, or what should I do? Because I felt very helpless. But it also causes problems if you insist on taking your pet to your friends' houses, if your friends are not comfortable with having pets in their house. Because one of the reasons I don't want a pet in my house is that I spend all my time cleaning up after my family, and I don't want to clean up after a pet.
Yeah,
I have to
can
be honest,
understand that.
but
I can
that's
understand that.
the case. Yeah.
Louisfa says that another disadvantage, you have to feed the animal, which
Mhm.
means money for food. That's very true.
Absolutely.
And I
And at the
like,
moment, with the rising prices, that's been in the news. I've read articles about that, about pet food has become very, very expensive.
yeah.
Mhm.
And he also says you have to pick up after your pet. I like that expression, to
Mhm.
pick up after an animal or
Mm.
to pick up after your children means to
Mhm.
clear up or clean up the mess that they make. Yeah.
But the
to pick up.
advantage of children is that eventually they grow up. and then they start to behave and pick up after themselves,
Yeah.
So
And then they earn
that
money and they support you when you get old.
well, I wouldn't quite say that, but the advantage is with it, it's different with a pet, isn't it? Because I think when you have a pet, you have to realize that the pet is always, for its entire life, going to be dependent on you. And for most people, if you're blessed and your child is healthy, that's not the case with children. Children do grow up, and finally you get your independence back, and you still have your child.
Yeah.
But with a pet, it's not quite the same, is it?
No, it's not. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got time for one final question.
Okay.
Why don't you choose one, Lynn? Which of these
um
questions do you fancy?
I want the question about, what about the pets? Let's think about the pets. Do you think it's a good life for a pet to be a pet? Is it good for them?
Um, we don't know, do we? Because they can't
Mm.
speak to us. It seems like dogs appreciate owners a lot more than cats do.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't think I think it's a very selfish thing sometimes to have a pet, because the pet didn't ask for you to take it into your house.
No.
We have the pet to keep us happy because it
Mhm.
makes us happy. And yeah, we love the animal and we try to make the animal happy, but we don't really ask the animal if they want to live with us. The animal
Mhm.
can't speak for itself. So it does
Mhm.
seem a bit selfish, but also I do understand that people do love their animals and they do take care of them. So
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know. What do you think?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much like you. I think, like, I don't like to see. I think it's bad for pets like goldfish in bowls. I'm not that keen on seeing fish in aquariums either, um, because there's no interaction with the fish in the aquariums. You're just putting the fish. It's a visual thing that you enjoy looking at. You know.
Hmm.
Um, I think with cats and dogs, it can be different because, you can make a pleasant life for a cat. They might enjoy exploring your house and, the heat and the warmth and the food. Yeah. And the same with the dogs. I think, the dogs can have fun with you, and with kids, they seem to enjoy playing. Um, but there are some animals, I think, like, especially like snakes and iguanas and reptiles. I can't understand that. I love seeing those animals in the wild. I think it's lovely to see the animals in their
But
natural habitat, if you
But that's
can.
interesting. Why do we think that, and I agree, but why do we think that it's not natural to have a snake as a pet, but it is natural to have a dog or a cat? What makes dogs and
Well, I
cats
didn't say I think it's natural, but I think dogs and cats have been
more
domesticated
accepted,
over hundreds and hundreds of years, haven't they?
more
Uh-huh.
accepted? Yeah.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. But it's
Interesting.
true. I don't know. I don't know. And there are many domesticated animals that are not pets, but like cows, for example, that, probably wouldn't exist in the numbers that they do if they hadn't been domesticated. I mean, cows and chickens and those kind of animals that feed us, they have all been domesticated, haven't they? You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Over
hard
the
to
years.
imagine whether those animals what would happen to those? Could those animals live in the wild now? Could a Yorkshire Terrier live in the wild?
Not for very long.
And I don't think they can, because I think they've been domesticated for so many centuries, these
But
dogs
the way
and and
the way the
cats.
world's going, that's what's going to happen, I think. I don't think there is going to be much wild anymore
Yeah,
because
that's
it's
true.
just
Hmm.
getting smaller. So
Hmm.
eventually we're going to have this situation
Hmm.
where it's not a normal environment for the animals to live in.
Yeah.
Let's finish with what people are saying because there's been some
Yeah.
comments coming in.
Hmm.
Begonia says that the main disadvantage is when they pass away.
Absolutely. I can imagine that. And often
Yeah.
as well, Begonia, because you have to decide the moment when they pass away.
Yeah.
That was so heartbreaking with my friend whose cat had cancer. It was awful.
It's
Uh-huh.
like losing a member of the family.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It really is. Emma says that you interact with the dog or the cat. Yeah,
Hmm.
you do. They do become part of the family, I
Rather
think.
than, I think she must be meaning rather than with the snake or the reptile, do you think maybe? Is that what you
Oh,
mean, Hema?
yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, that could be what Emma means.
That's
Yeah,
maybe why they are more acceptable as pets, because there is some communication there. There is definitely, even
yeah.
with cats. Uh-huh. Yeah. Mhm.
Charlie says he can't imagine wild
Oh God.
chihuahuas.
I don't want to imagine wild chihuahuas. I think chihuahuas already are wild.
That could be
They're crazy little dogs,
a good
chihuahuas.
idea for a
Uh-huh.
horror film, I think.
Yeah.
Chihuahuas on a plane where they
Oh
attack the
gosh.
pilot and the plane
Uh-huh.
crashes.
No, that would be
Yeah.
terrible. Hmm.
Shall we quickly
Hmm.
review the vocabulary before we say goodbye?
Yeah,
Because
let's do that.
there wasn't that much, was there? Let's go back
Uh-huh.
to dogs then. We
Uh-huh.
had kennels, the home of the dog, where the dog lives, or where you give your dog for a short period of time when you go on holiday because it's like a hotel and you pay for your dog to be in the kennels.
Hmm. And the lead or the leash and the collar, that's what you do with the dog when you take it for a walk. So the collar goes around its neck, and the rope or the string is called a lead in British English or a leash in American English. Hmm.
And the breed is the type of dog you have. So we've had today Yorkshire Terriers, we've had Chihuahuas, German Shepherds, Huskies. They are
St.
all
Bernards.
different breeds.
Uh-huh.
St.
Yeah.
Bernards, yeah.
Hmm. And obedience training is when you try to train the dog to respond to your commands and do what you want it to do. And dogs seem to have a good ability to do that, don't they? Because we can train dogs to do many, many things. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Even smell for COVID. That was the latest training for
Hmm.
dogs. I remember when I went through Los Angeles airport, I had to pass a dog and it was sniffing me to see if I had COVID.
Yeah.
It was from the border guards. We're using the dogs to sniff for COVID. Mhm.
If you do this on the head of the dog, you're patting the dog. And to pet a dog, we also use the verb to stroke the fur of the dog.
Mhm. And bark, growl, and whine are the sounds that the dog makes. Woof woof, or meow. No, that was a cat, wasn't
That
it?
was okay.
That was a meow. A dog. Woo! No, I haven't done that right either. Never mind.
We'll we'll move on.
Mhm.
Cats. Cats go to the toilet in a litter tray, and when it's time for the cat to get some fresh air or go to the toilet outside, then you let the cat out.
Mhm. You stroke a cat, as we said when we pet a cat. The whiskers are the little like the mustache that the cat has. The hairs, the very long hairs that come above its mouth. And cats like to keep themselves clean. Their fur is their coat, and they like to lick it to keep it clean. Sometimes the fur goes in their mouth and they have a fur ball which they have to eject. And meow and purr are the sounds that I can make, which is meow and purr.
Very nice.
That's better than the
Perfect.
dog one as well, isn't
Yeah,
it?
better than your cats are better than your dogs.
Cats are better than dogs.
Goldfish bowls, fish live in bowls or aquariums. And that's, yeah, I understand what Lynn says, but then they're safe in aquariums, whereas if they're living in the sea, then another big fish can come and eat it. So I think aquariums are safer, although the fish might get a bit bored going round and round and round.
And I think
tropical
my
fish,
goldfish ate the other one. I think it's quite common for goldfish to kill each other.
yeah, if they're hungry enough.
Mm.
Turtles tend to live in water, and a tortoise, which can also be a pet, lives outside of water.
Then we have cages, and the birds are usually in these cages that are put in the living room. We have parrots, which actually talk, canaries that sing pretty, and they have a pretty song. And then we also have sort of more stable cages, which are on the ground. And in those, we often have types of rodents. So skunks, which have a very long tail and smell, ferrets, which also are quite long and have a big, long, furry tail, rabbits, which are nice, hamsters, which are sort of big mice, I think,
Yeah.
a mice, and then a gerbil, which is a small one too. They're all kinds of rodents.
And reptiles live in vivariums like lizards, iguanas, snakes, those kind of animals.
Animal shelter is if you find abandoned animals on the street. They are called strays, and it's a good idea to take them along to the animal shelter. People can go to the animal shelter if they want a pet, and they can adopt a pet, so they can get a pet for free from the animal shelter.
Exactly. And that's it. Yes, Gemma, thank you for watching. It's been a lovely stream. We've enjoyed it very, very much. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be back again 2 weeks from today with a different topic. But until then, we'll remind you that if you want to study English, go to mansioningles.com, where you can study courses for free, especially if you're a Spanish speaker. And if you're interested in studying with me and doing a conversation course with a small group of lovely people, twice a week or once a week on Sunday, if you have a busy week, then send me an email to this address. My email is mansionteachers@yahoo.com. I'll put that in the chat also, and I will happily send you information about the course. Which has started, but there will be another one soon. So let me know if you're interested in fluency practice, and I'll send you more information. Lynn?
And if you're interested in tailor-made classes to achieve your objectives, your specific objectives in English, then I can put a course together for you to try to help in specific objectives. So if you're interested in that, go to my website, putitlikethis.com. You'll have a sample of all the different types of courses that I teach to give you kinds of ideas. And then if you're interested, you can contact me over the contact page. All right.
Okay. Thank you for watching. If you do have a pet, be nice to your pet. Take it for a walk, stroke your dog, stroke your cat, and send it lots of love. Until next time, thanks for watching. And we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.